Craig Parker, thank you so much for taking time to be with us on Beyond the Screens today.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
Looking at your history, we have Xena, Legend of the Seeker, Lord of the Rings, Spartacus, and I'm beginning to see a little of a pattern there. You know, is there something that you've always been drawn to when it comes to swords and fantasies and that sort of thing as far as the kind of roles you choose? Is that something that you're drawn to, or did it just fall into place that way?
It's kind of just fallen that way. I've done a lot of other things that are in normal everyday clothes and different series, but the fantasy stuff has been the stuff that sort of made it around the world. So I think with Seeker and Spartacus and Lord of the Rings, they traveled far from New Zealand, but I guess there's been an equal share of fantasy and kind of real life stuff, but it's the same drive you have when you're a kid. You want to dress up and have cool costumes. I do love with fantasy that when you put all that stuff together, it's so much fun. The geek within me, rejoices.
Well, then you can come to conventions like this and still dress up like that.
Exactly, or see other people dressing up.
Or see other people.
Yeah, and one of the joys, as an actor, you can't really ever complain about how hard work is, but we do actually do hard work. But one of the things that always gets me is how uncomfortable, even the most beautifully made costume becomes after you've worn it for 14 hours each day. And the joy at these things is I see people arrive in amazing outfits that they've made or had built. And by the end of the day, you go, how are you feeling? And they're dying of heat. And it's like, now you know the pain.
That's right. Definitely true. I've heard a lot of stories like that. It's fun to wear until you get out in the heat, and then it's something else.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, when you think of Lord of the Rings, everything is just so large and epic and on such a grand scale, and obviously we can all see that on screen. But as an actor, what stood out for you in making that picture with all the grandiose components that it had to it, and how long it'll live with fans and moviegoers alike?
I think when you make something, you always try and find the human with it. And I think the success of those films was, the guys in the Fellowship, and they found the humanity in those different characters. They weren't playing the epic quality of the film. But to work on something like that is remarkable. You can walk onto a set, and most of the time in film and television, things are a lot of pretend. There's a lot of, fakeness that looks great on screen, but with that show there was so much effort and thought that went into the authenticity of everything. The fabrics were fabrics that could have existed. No synthetic fabrics were used because the looming looked different. The metal work was metal craftsmen who did it, and the leather work and all that kind of stuff. And these sets would be built, and they were enormous and spectacular. So you walk onto a set wearing the most beautiful costume, surrounded by fantastic, talented people, and that was the great buzz for me, I suppose.
Did you seek out that particular role for Lord of the Rings, or was it a situation where they knew they definitely wanted to have you involved and they just found the right thing for you?
I never quite know how those things work. I was involved in the animatic and did a bit of work beforehand with Peter and that group. So I knew of the story, and I think I played Frodo and a whole lot of other characters in the sort of radio play animatic we put together years before filming. So I think possibly Peter had, kindly said, let's put him in something. But I read for the role years later and got the call, which is, it's always good to get that call.
Absolutely. You've been part of two very significant productions that were tied to books, Lord of the Rings and, of course, Legend of the Seeker. Is there something special or more appealing about bringing an existing character to life as opposed to reaching in and having to develop one from scratch?
There's a joy when you can go to a series of books and discover the inner workings of a character. With a new script, it's a case of often working backwards, where you reverse engineering the character, of going, okay, this is what they do and they say.
Right.
Why are they doing that? And you work backwards from that. When you have the luxury of having a character already fleshed out in the book, you can go to that and take a lot of that information to inform your character. I think it can be a slight trap at times too, because with Legend of the Seeker, our TV series was different to the book. It was, and it was a conscious choice to alter things to make it our own world, because we're never going to live up to the imagination of the people who read the...
Right, and Dark and Rawl didn't last very long in the book series.
Exactly. Well, our series didn't last very long, so...
Hey, you know what? It should have lasted a lot longer, that's for sure. Two seasons were very good.
2 seasons were great, and we were thrilled to get 2 seasons,
yeah.
you know, so we had a great time. But, it's a really good tool to be able to go to an author's original work and draw aspects of. And with Legend of the Seeker, we physically changed Dark and Rawl. There were aspects about him that were totally different to the books, but we would all, with our characters and that, we would all come back to the books to just get... Our mission basically was to find the core, the thing that the readers will take away of who this person is, and if we can match that in our television production, then it'll work.
Right.
So hopefully we achieved some of that anyway.
Well, he's a great villain. I would think that's the classic situation where it's just a lot of fun to play the villain.
So much fun to play the villain. And we would fight not to make it a camp show. And our kind of producing director, Mark Beasley, was very firm about that. And especially as new cast would come in and say, we take this seriously. We take the world seriously. It's not a campy wizards and dragons world. But there was a sense of play that was allowed to happen, and with Rawl, he had a sense of humor. You know, he thought he was incredibly funny,
yeah,
and he loved playing games. So that gives one a great deal of freedom in performance. I think you're allowed to, you know, push the edge.
Well, the other great thing I think about that show, obviously, is your fellow cast members. I mean, they did such a great job. You guys made such a great team bringing that book to life, whether it be Craig or Bridget, Bruce. Talk a little bit about working with those cast members.
They were a joy, and because our characters were trying to kill each other, we didn't get to work together that much.
Right.
But we'd see each other around, and when we did have episodes together, I was so excited, because normally I was off in my own worlds, right, doing stuff. And when I got to play with them, it was so much fun. And, you know, Bruce is just beautiful. I just kind of laugh so much with him. He's got such a dry and smart sense of humor. Craig is just this sort of crazy ball of energy and great fun. And Bridget is just a goddess, you know, she's so lovely. So it was, and Tabret, of course, in the second series.
Yes.
So it was always exciting for me whenever we got to play together. And the characters had such strong views on each other that playing those scenes was great. You know, you sort of knew exactly where you could go and what you could do. So, yeah.
The Lord of the Rings fans are pretty passionate, but I'm sure you've had a chance to come across a lot of the Seeker fans that still carry that torch. And what kind of impact has that had on you? What's it been like 2 or 3 years out, even after the series has come and gone, that people are still passionate about you and your work in that series?
Well, it's really lovely, because when we were shooting it, we were out in New Zealand, so and it wasn't playing on television there, I think, at the time. And then I was been in New Zealand for the last while working on Spartacus. It's wonderful when you see that people actually do watch the thing you make.
Sure. And that's very important.
We all really liked it, and it's so lovely when you find that other people kind of enjoyed it and got the sense of humor to it as well. And I think the way technology works now and broadcasting works now, a show from years before can suddenly, you know, you can see it on DV or
right,
you can download it, and so we're no longer tied to that. You have to watch it on the Tuesday night, and if you don't see it, you know, and haven't taped it, you missed it.
Yeah.
So it's really lovely that shows can continue and still, you know, hopefully bring pleasure to people.
What kind of things are you working on now? I know you've been in Spartacus, but what are some of the other things that we can look forward to seeing you in the coming months?
I'm doing absolutely nothing at the moment. I've had several months of being a total bum. So.
Well, but you get to come to things like this.
I just come to things like this, and I had a solid 5 years of working, and just got to a point of going, I need to go travel, and so I've been very irresponsible, and I keep promising Dad that I'll start working again, but it's...
but you've had a much-needed break.
It has. It's been really fun, so I'll start working again next year in the new year. Until now, I'm being lazy.
All right. Well, sir, I really appreciate your time. It's a pleasure to talk to you about your work, and all the best when you get those next few projects and in the near future. Yes, sir. Thank you so much for your time.
Great pleasure.